Welcome back to the CoDaKrew podcast. Every Premier League team has just 2 games left to play, and yet many still have all to play for. And whether it is the title race, the battle for European spots, or the fight to stay up, we still have much to cover. For those who are new, Swapnil and I have been predicting every Premier League match since the start of the season, and we have been keeping track of our scores using a system that is on the screen now. Neither of us did too well last week, with Swapnil getting 6 points and myself getting just 5, but it does mean that with 2 match weeks left, just like how the Premier League remains close as ever, our battle does as well. So that being said, let's get started with Aston Villa against Liverpool.
Yeah. First off with this match, congrats Burnley on your first point since February, right? They were surprisingly good here. But how much of that I think can you attribute to Burnley being good here? And how much of that can you attribute to Villa's European hangover? The exact thing I warned about. I said that somehow they've got to avoid it. I think that this is that hangover right here. They were sluggish, I would say, from the very start of this game, lacked intensity, long stretches spent moving or just passing the ball around with very little incision. That last point, perhaps you could put it up to the injuries in midfield, which were an issue for them before, and I know they're starting to show up again. But whatever it was, this game did not at all look like 5th place versus 19th should, right? Speaking of which, Villa are still 5th. I know Bournemouth and Brighton are catching up now, which I think should be something of concern. But with all that said, no matter how precarious their league position is, the Europa League final's in a week. So what Villa's probably going to end up doing in this game is the same thing they've done for the last few league matches: preserve most of your best forwards and pray the ones that you put on get the job done. And I think the only way they win this game is we really fuck things up, which we could do. But just to be clear, I don't think Villa is playing for a win here at all. They have their sights set on entirely different things.
Yeah, very clear. The way that they've been playing for the last few weeks, the rotations, the squads they've been playing, clearly the journey for them is to win the Europa League and get back into the UCL that way. And, it makes sense. Last year they were burned by the Premier League, but it is still a very risky strategy. If they lose to Freiburg, and they also lose against Liverpool and City, who are obviously 2 very difficult opponents to face by Premier League standards, they are in a world of trouble. As you mentioned, Bournemouth and Brighton could still catch them. Bournemouth has a bit of a harder schedule because they have to play City as well, but Brighton have 2 very winnable games, and their goal differential is already better. So Villa are, again, walking a bit of a tightrope here, where if they don't beat Freiburg, they could be missing out on the UCL by the slimmest of margins for the second year in a row. And against Burnley, like you said, we can see what happens when Villa deprioritize. 66% possession, and yet they never look that explosive offensively, and several mistakes, a lack of pace, partially due to the midweek, led them to, quite deservingly so, only get a point. And yes, you guys have not looked the best recently, but Isak is coming back. Missing a number 9 has been a huge problem for you guys. Mo Salah, according to Arne Slot, is probably going to play at least some minutes, which will help you guys on the flanks a little bit as well. So this is a pretty favorable matchup for Liverpool. I mentioned this back when we were doing our Premier League table video, but Liverpool have quite a few lucky fixtures in remaining matches, and this is certainly one of them.
Yeah, as for Liverpool, all I can say is some bleak fucking football I had to watch just now versus Chelsea. Completely drained of energy, confidence, and attacking quality. I think for all the people who are slot out, this is definitely going to be a great game to back their point. I think if I want to point out one thing, just as like an exemplar for how terrible we've played as of late, just our attacking philosophy completely disappearing. So many moments in this game, Mamardashvili had the ball, and he wanted to push it up quickly, push it fast, but had literally no one to pass to up the pitch. Couldn't boot the ball or throw it long, just had to roll it every time. It's like this passive buildup, if you could even call it buildup, that we had in this game. Killed the atmosphere, and ultimately it let Chelsea settle into the game as well. So, just as I said, I don't think Villa will be playing for a win in this game. We were just trying not to lose last week, and I am somewhat worried the objective here will be the same, that we'll have the same objective as Villa. It does seem like Wirtz could come back. That'll give us good creativity. If Salah returns, I think that's a big boost. But still, there is an attitude problem here for us. It is dragging the whole team down. These guys are out of it, honestly, and I don't expect them locking in here in this match.
I don't know if I agree with that because against United, you guys fought back from 2-0 down. Granted, you lost, but you looked a lot better in the second half. Against Chelsea, you got the first goal. Again, you did not look great, but I do think part of the issue, not people not knowing where they should be, is the confusion in your starting 11. Obviously, no number 9. Isak is going to be back. No attacking midfielder. Verts is going to be back. Jeremy Frimpong is still who he is, too shit to be a fullback and not good enough offensively to be a winger either. But even 20 minutes of Mo Salah, in my opinion, is going to provide a lot more output offensively than 90 minutes or 100 minutes of Jeremy Frimpong. I still see from several of the other players in your squad a willingness to be offensive. And I do think that if you can actually play a normal formation and not have to play Szoboszlai as a striker, there is still something there for your side. We were talking about a few months ago Liverpool potentially not making it to the UCL. And part of the reason why they let off the gas a little bit is that they've already qualified for the UCL again. So obviously you're always going to be more down on your team. You have bigger expectations because you are a Liverpool fan. But I think in this case, I'm still feeling pretty good about your chances.
Okay, fair. I mean, yeah, maybe compared to you, I am down on my team because I have a 1-1 here. I'm personally thinking it is going to be a somewhat drab draw for these two teams. I don't know. I think we'll have more attacking space in this game again with Verts and maybe Salah back, and Villa's midfield also looking quite questionable. But at the same time, Rodgers and Watkins, they can punish the way we defend transitions and second balls. So I think Villa have got their own aggressiveness. And pair all that with the fact that I think as of late, these two teams have looked sloppy. That is my opinion on them, anyways. I think they will have spells where they will look decent. Each team will look decent at certain points in time, just decent, not great. And we'll have more of those spells, but I think Villa can pounce on our errors a bit better than we can do for theirs. And so it'll kind of all balance out for me. We find probably a pretty good goal for ourselves, then slowly just soak up pressure until we screw up somewhere. And 1-1 is how it ends.
You can only soak up pressure if Villa start to apply pressure. And what we have seen in their recent matches is they do not apply pressure until way too late. Against Tottenham, essentially until the 85th minute, when I believe Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins were subbed on, they provided absolutely nothing offensively. Against Burnley, they did provide offense, but Burnley is a relegated side, and as shit as you may think you are still much, much better
Yeah,
than that.
we're better than Burnley. Right.
What I see happening is a repeat of Villa's match against Tottenham. Because they're probably going to play a rotated squad once again. You guys, even though there are problems, should be able to take advantage, at least early on. Because if Tottenham can take advantage, you can. Villa will get a goal back, because once they start rotating their starters, which they will still play a little bit because they want to be somewhat fresh for the Freiburg match, they might get a goal back, just like they did late against Tottenham. But I would say this is a match that is going to be decided over 90 minutes, not the final 10. So if we're considering the course of the 90 minutes, I think you guys should be able to find 2 goals. I think they will get one back, but Liverpool win 2-1.
Okay, fair. Then we move on to two teams with honestly not much to play for left in the league. It's just pride at this point. But even still, I think we can see a good showing. It is going to be Man U versus Sunderland.
What will be interesting is what these two teams decide to line up with. Because while they have some great attacking output and flair, I'm talking about both sides here, there are also some questions with regards to injuries. Benjamin Šeško, Amar Murillo, Morgan Gibbs-White, will they play or not? We don't know. But when you're in a situation where for United it's guaranteed Champions League and Forest it's mathematical safety, they're not going to want to take those risks. There's just no reason to. And against Sunderland, for example, we saw Michael Carrick not play Casemiro, who, by the way, was healthy, and not play, I believe, Matheus Cunha either. It was either Cunha or Mbemo who wasn't playing. He decided to play Joshua Zirkzee, and that certainly hurt United quite a bit. I think it is quite telling. If I were to make one critique of Carrick, I would say, is that he's been over-reliant on Harry Maguire, Casemiro, and Bruno Fernandes. And without Casemiro there, we saw what Sunderland did to their midfield. So, for me, who wins this match, what the result is going to depend a lot on the starting lineups. Nottingham Forest, even with their backups, have looked pretty solid this Premier League stretch. I think they're 8 games undefeated, but I can't say the same about United.
Yeah, it's like you said, which makes this game, I think, all the harder to call that it depends so much on the lineups. You could rarely feel the absence of Casemiro in midfield. Sunderland played through the center way too easily at times. I know Mount struggled badly in that deeper role. And then up front with no Sheshko, they had to rely on Xerxes, of all people, to lead the line, which killed, I think, any real attacking threat centrally. I will say, though, Casemiro looks likely to return. And Sheshko could be a super sub again, potentially, which he was great at earlier in the season. Um, and I think also Man U will have more territory against Forest than against Sunderland, especially at Old Trafford, where I think they've been generally more in control of their games. There is transition threat to be worried about from Forest, especially if Casemiro doesn't come back. But at the same time, let's say Gibbs White also isn't playing for Nottingham. I think Man U can safely get by with like at least a draw. You don't think so?
Well, because look at the way that their backers have played. They didn't have Morgan Gibbs White when they beat Chelsea 3-1. They didn't have Morgan Gibbs White when they drew against Newcastle and arguably looked better. Maybe they don't need Morgan Gibbs White to get a point against United. I mean, look at the way Aloni has been playing recently. Look at the way Igor Jesus has been. Their backup front three has been surprisingly solid.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, in this Newcastle game, what was it? Bakwa, Anderson, Awoni. They were all great, I think. Caused lots of problems in transition and wide areas. Anderson was everywhere, right? The goal was brilliant, but he also rarely held Forest together physically. So I think there are guys here stepping up to mitigate Forest injury issues. But I do feel like just the way these injuries are piling up for Forest is a problem. I don't know if it's down. Maybe it is down to their playing style, and actually, a lot of it is probably also the European games, right? But I think they've somewhat run out of legs, and even though they're out of the Europa League now, that could cause some lingering problems for them too. I don't know if more injuries somehow show up for them, which could be like a death knell at that point. But for now, I'm gonna say both these teams, their lineups look pretty decent. I think I do want to say it's still advantage United though, especially if it seems like Casemiro will be coming back. Um, yeah, and I with that I think Manu will just have more control over this game. And again, playing at home I think will help them in that sense as well. Yeah, I think United get by. I'll go 2-1 to them. It'll be a close one though, to be fair.
I think I think that if Casemiro plays, if Sheshko plays some amount of minutes, I agree with you, United will win 2-1. And that is my prediction. But I do have to warn people to take this with a grain of salt because Amad Diallo is probably going to start and he's scored 2 games all season. Joshua Zirkzee might start and he is not good.
Yeah.
And Mason Mount is not a number 6. So if we see a similar lineup to the one against Sunderland, I actually think it's going to be a draw again. But I just get the feeling that yes, Michael Carrick looks like he should get the job again, but if he is going to be safe and if he wants to make sure that the owners choose him, he should still try to get some results in these last 2 matches to really secure his spot. So, given that, I'm going to say the United win this 2-1.
Okay, fair enough. And then we go to Brentford versus Crystal Palace. Brentford, I think, a pretty good game, the last one, but they couldn't find any points ultimately. So can they fix that here?
I would say that part of what makes Brentford so strong is that they play the same way no matter what. They have no respect for anybody. And I've made this point a few times before. I thought maybe against Man City, maybe that's the one time where you have an exception, right? Against a Pep side, especially, who is going for a title race, who just won the previous match 3-0. Well, Brentford decided, no, we are going to play our brand of football. We're going to hit you on the transition. We're going to push up our fullbacks, even though you have Jeremy Doku on their squad. And even though Man City once again won 3-0, Brentford gave us an entertaining watch. And I have to give them credit for that. Meanwhile, Palace, they have been quite questionable recently. They have nothing to play for in the Premier League, just like some of the other teams that are still in Europe, and they're going all in on the Conference League. When they actually played their starters against Everton, they were pretty solid, but then as soon as they rotated against Man City, they got smoked out. This match is going to be 4 days after that Etihad humiliation, and they're probably going to have to rotate some out again. So I'm a little bit worried about whether Palace is going to get a 1-2 punch, so to speak, in this match against Brentford.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Palace, they didn't need to make that Everton game as entertaining as they did, but it was fair play, one of the more fun matches of the weekend. Even with that Conference League final looming, we still saw them playing nice and aggressive. But yeah, I think for this particular match, Brentford are maybe one of the worst teams to play against if, like Palace, you have this low depth and your structure just gets kind of stretched over time. This is not what you want to play against. Palace do commit a lot forward. They were against Everton anyways. And Brentford, of course, are excellent at punishing open transitions. I mean, we saw against City, they had that central block, rarely denying central access. And when they got the ball, you've got Kevin Shada. He is right there, always ready to push fast and hard, right? And I think they can do that again here. They are consistent, like you said, in that play style of theirs, Brentford. And I know Palace have got players in good form. Mateta is somehow coming back, which is like one of the shocks of the season for me that he's made a recovery.
Yeah, no,
But
that not on my bingo card.
yeah, and Sarr in good form too. But Brentford have players in good form, and they're also just like consistent with everything, whether it's their attack, their play style more generally. I think we will see more attacking ambition from Brentford as always, and especially playing at home with their fans to cheer them on, it will get them by. And I'm gonna have another 2-1 here, and it's gonna be a 2-1 for Brentford.
Not only, like you said, have they been consistent, and will they have the home advantage, unlike Palace that has nothing to play for at least in the league, Brentford, while they're probably not going to make the UCL, are still definitely pushing for a spot in Europe, which for a club the size of Brentford, financially is a big deal. So they have all the wind in their sails. Palace have absolutely none. And while I agree with you that Brentford are going to score 2 goals, I don't see how Palace scores one, especially if they play Brennan Johnson, who hasn't scored for them this season, especially if Mateta does not decide to turn up that day, if they play like a Lerma or a Will Hughes, which I believe not that long ago, they played both of them as their double pivot. And no disrespect to them, they were nowhere close to the level of Taichi Kamada and Adam Morton. I just think that Brentford have been too solid, to which, if Palace decide to even muck around a little bit, it's going to be another humiliation. Brentford are not a team that tend to go crazy scoreline wise, but I think it's going to be pretty dominant. So Brentford 2-0. And I guess if you're a Palace fan, you don't really care about this anyways, do you, right? I mean, last year
Right.
their chant was 12 again, who gives a fuck, we won the FA Cup. It's
I
going to be
mean,
whatever if again, who gives a fuck, we win the Conference League, which is not as catchy, but it's still a fair point.
yeah, I mean, I don't think the team even cares, bro. That's the thing. They're not getting relegated. They're not getting European spots, right? So they're probably fine to give up every point here. But with that said, we move on to a team that does really need the European spots, or well, two teams even. We've got Everton and Sunderland, both chasing, really trailing in that race. And if they have any chance to respond, it is now.
And these are two very imperfect squads. They could make Europe still, but they have to be basically perfect from here on out. Everton haven't won in 5 matches, and I would say part of that is their structure, which made them solid earlier in the season and made them a contender, if not a favorite, to qualify for Europe, has gone against them. That is Jared Bramthwaite. Losing him defensively has been a big deal, and Idrissa Gueye, who has been a very underrated squad, a very underrated member of their squad, especially in defensive transition. For their last match, for example, against Sunderland, not against Sunderland, but in their last match, they kind of struggled with dealing with physicality, right? Against Palace, you would expect them to do better. You'd expect them to control the midfield, but they weren't able to do so. Sunderland, meanwhile, also some defensive problems. Dan Bauer's suspension, as we've talked about before, has hurt them quite a bit. And even though United weren't able to break them down, partially due to Carrick deciding to just troll with his starting 11, Everton very well could.
Yeah, but I will say, in terms of physicality, yeah, I was surprised that Everton really did struggle against Palace. But of course, you look at Sunderland and they've not got Ballard. That's going to be just as much a problem for them, I think. We see that this Everton side are pretty good with set pieces, second balls, just generally chaotic play in the box. They can get by with that. So Sunderland, I think, will be also quite questionable defensively. And especially against Everton, I think that could be quite the bad fit. As well, Everton, of course, also defensively questionable. They did give up like late goals against both City and Palace, let both of them come back. That's a problem, right? But their attack has looked very dangerous lately. I'm going to tout that. Beto looks very rejuvenated right now. Barry's been pretty consistent, which is made up for him being pretty shit before. I mean, you can always bring in Njai, right? He's a bit on and off at times, but we know he's a skiller, right? He is a baller. He can come in anytime and just like throw all tactics out the window. I think Everton, they've got this like nice cutting edge to them, a little chaos factor, and it could go quite well, especially when Sunderland are looking just that little bit unstable in the back. I think things could work out for Everton there. I think it'll be another close one, and you could say just off their general play, maybe it's not deserved for Everton, but I am going to say they win this one 2-1. I think that they will get by some way or another. They'll get by.
Okay. Wait, so you have 3-2-1s in a row to get us started.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I agree with you, especially with Beto and Tierno Barry. Not only did Tierno Barry get his brace against Donnarumma, Beto absolutely just bodies Maxim Lacroix, who is not exactly a small player, to get that equalizer. And similarly here, I mean, again, without Dan Ballard, can Omar Alderete cope with that level of physicality, right? I definitely do think that Everton are going to have a nice day at the office, shooting-wise. But then again, I look at that Sunderland side, especially in transition. Against United, because they were missing a key defensive midfielder, they were able to look very threatening in transition. And although the scoreline says 0-0, that's only because Shene Lamens played like Lev Yashin, right? Sunderland absolutely deserved to win. Once again, they're playing a team that is missing a key defensive midfielder. So I just get the feeling that anything Everton can do to them, they can do the same thing right back to Everton. So I'm going to say it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
Fair. And now we go to, we have one team who is fighting with Everton, Sunderland for Europe. They are a lot further ahead, Brighton. And they're going to try and keep that spot. They're in Europe right now. They want it to stay that way. They are playing Leeds, who, despite being safe, have actually been pretty good in their last game, right? So it is a concern. But can Brighton get the crucial three-pointer here to keep their European hopes alive?
Well, if you want to talk about Leeds being good, we got to talk about Brighton being good, right? Because once again, Brighton showing that anybody on that side can score. 3-0 against Wolves. Not only were they amazing offensively, and not only should they have scored more were it not for Wolves' keeper making some insane heroics, they conceded one shot on target. This is an Arsenal. This is a fluid offensive Brighton that conceded one shot on target all match. Granted, it was Wolves, but that just goes to show how good Brighton have been all season. And this is another one of those matches where, like you were saying, these don't have anything to play for. They're mathematically safe. They're kind of waiting for next season. Brighton are looking at the table, and this is the point I'm making with Villa, only in reverse. Villa very well could get 0 points for the rest of the season. Bournemouth could very well be capped at 3, because they're playing City. If I'm Brighton, I have a better goal differential than both of those teams already, so that's not even a factor. It's like +4, +4, +10, so that's completely out the window. If I win these next two matches, I'm in a very, very good position to finish 5th. Forget, does Villa have to win the Europa League? Am I putting it to chance? No, I could very well take the initiative if I'm Brighton and automatically qualify for the Champions League by placement. This squad, not that long ago, was 14th in the Premier League, and this is the state they're talking about right now. So I look at this match, and yes, Leeds have been good recently. Yes, they were arguably robbed against Tottenham with the refereeing in that match, but it's going to be very difficult to play Brighton right now in the Premier League, no matter who you are.
Yeah, I mean, if you just talk about the motives, Leeds did bring great energy against Tottenham despite being relegated. But they are ultimately safe in the Premier League. I think ultimately that's going to set into their heads, right? And it probably will play out quite differently, these games for them. They always bring good intensity, but that edge can drop off a bit. And I think as for Brighton, they absolutely have that edge right now and will keep it. It's like we've said, there are so many people who can score on this team. As well, you can talk about De Kuyper in this game, who came off the bench for Weaver, right? Not came off the bench. He did start this game because Weaver, I think, is injured.
He replaced Weaver with the injury.
Yeah. 2 blazing fast assists, man. It was amazing. In 5 minutes, this game against Wolves was completely done and dusted. It's just, again, another showing that like Brighton can really rely on that bench. I don't know if they've got maybe the most bench goals now, like non-starting 11 in the league. I'm sure they're definitely up there, especially if it's like goals and assists, then they might be top. But regardless, they have a very, very reliable squad. I think that's true for Leeds as well, but it's like for Brighton, you're going away to Elland Road, which is a strong away atmosphere. So how are you going to get by that? You need to trust that a bunch of people can show up for you in this game. And I think that can absolutely happen with Brighton. We've seen it, right? And I think we will see it again, which means even at a strong away stadium, they will cause Leeds lots of problems, I'm sure.
And as for Leeds, I don't know if they're ready for the onslaught that Brighton is going to show them. They are potentially, we don't know for sure, going to be missing Goodmanson and Stroik, who are two key experienced players for their structure. And as good as Brighton have been offensively, Leeds, I cannot say the same. They have been players that have been clutch for them offensively at moments, especially I'm thinking about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'm thinking about Noah Okafor. But in match week 1, we were talking about their finishing, their lack of ability to close out matches, which once again, they were not able to do against Tottenham. And you compare that to this Brighton side, and the dynamics do not look good. Leeds, I believe, is underperforming their XG by more than 4 goals. Even still, they've been underperforming their XG all season long. And if we're basing this off tactics, Leeds should win, right? Because they're at home. They have a strong midfield. Brighton sort of cede that to their opponents at times. But we have to factor in importance of match and consistency and form. And when you consider that, I think Brighton are going to win this match. I'm going to say they win this 2-1. And this is a perfect example of, in the Premier League, tactics are not the whole story, right? Brighton have everything else to their advantage. I think they'll get the job done.
Yeah, you could probably guess what I have as well. It is a fourth 2-1 in a row for me. I think. I mean, what can I say? I think this match definitely. That's what I'm expecting here. Brighton, they're in both teams. Leeds are decent form. Brighton are pretty good form. But again, it's just Brighton have something left to prove in this season, right? Both teams have very different motivations. I think here. Leeds, I think we'll see real urgency from Brighton. Maybe an early goal from them, just like before. And Leeds can eventually get something back, but I think Brighton will do enough to start that they get out with all the points. And yeah, it's a 2-1 for me.
Fair enough. Well, that brings us to the squad that Brighton whitewashed, Wolves, and it's another side that they're facing who have been a bit questionable recently in Fulham.
Yeah, well, I think Fulham will fare fine in this game, though. I mean, we said Wolves we thought would look a bit more liberated in their play, and they've just somehow managed to find a new low point for the season. I don't even know how they've done this, but completely overwhelmed by Brighton's intensity. Barely competed in the first half. Rob Edwards, their manager after the game, was asked about his squad and said, "Some of them have got to go by summer." That is a quote from their manager. Says
Some of them are going to go. They can't afford that squad.
Says everything about the state of this team. They had some brief moments after halftime. I know they hit the woodwork twice, but it makes little difference to me because they were good for the tiniest of moments. But besides that, this team was clearly and is clearly waiting for this season to finally end. And so you can't have any faith in them to produce a sharp, motivated performance, even if they are at home, right? Who's going to push them on? I don't think the fans care much at this point either. So it's like, I'll know what advantage they have in this game. I don't think there's anything going for them, to be honest.
I'll tell you the one thing that's going for them. If your opponent doesn't score a goal, you can't lose. Mathematical fact, right? Fulham have not been looking like a squad that scores a lot of goals recently. And that is Alex Iwobi's injury. We've talked about it quite a bit. We cannot emphasize it enough. Since then, their offense has been consistently flat. And that last match, I think, is actually a pretty perfect example. Because against Bournemouth, they control in the first half. The second half, after the 2 red cards, a red card for both sides, it becomes more chaotic. But they still are definitely in the game the whole time. So if you're just basing it off of who looked better in that match, Fulham should definitely be the winner. Yet not only did they not score, they never looked threatening. And unsurprisingly, they walked away with 0 points. So is the strategy for Wolves do nothing, get a point?
Maybe. I mean, to be fair, you can technically still lose if the opponent doesn't score a goal, and that's if you score it on yourself, right? Which
Very fair
Wolves
point.
Wolves have done.
Which is
They
something they
have.
have done this season.
Right. Okay, like with Fulham, I know, yeah, their attacking creation, I've said it as well, is really bad right now. They do just look stale for long stretches of their games now that Iwobi's gone. I honestly thought they were decent to start against Bournemouth, and I think if well, you can obviously say it's obvious you can say if Bournemouth went into halftime with a red card down a man, Fulham are going to look great coming out of that half. But I think the fact they got a red card back probably an underrated reason for why they were so shit after the second half. Because yeah, they are level on players; they're not one back, but they are now the ones dejected going into the locker rooms, right? And I'm sure that did make a big difference. But besides that, they're still just not looking great. However, I will say, I think you said this, right? Brighton scored 3 against Wolves. They could have, should have scored more, right? And I think Fulham, they have a chance creation problem, but not necessarily a finishing problem. So I think they will find as many chances as they usually get. Well, not as many as they usually get, because Wolves will allow them a lot more than they usually do. But they'll probably still finish them decently well also. And so I'm going to say they get a 2-0 win here. I am tempted to go 1-0 because they really have been struggling in offense, but it is also Wolves, right? So, yeah.
I have gone 1-0. I think you could definitely say 2-0. Iwobi might actually be coming back, so if he does, then I would change my prediction. I just feel like this is going to be a repeat of the Villa match. Because, again, like, Fulham, we should consider, also have nothing to play for, right? They're kind of like Wolves in this situation. And in a way, you're sort of tempted to go 0-0. Like, this feels very boring. But yeah, I mean, I can't back Wolves whatsoever at this point. There's nothing for them to show for. Like you were saying, we were thinking they might get a little bit better after being fully relegated. That is not materialized at all. So, sure, whatever. We'll give Fulham the win.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I said with Sunderland's match, like they had no, not really significant motivations. They're like trailing the European race. As for Newcastle, they're not even in it. I think their only motive here is place ahead of Sunderland this season. Whereas they're facing West Ham, who obviously are fighting for their lives right now. So West Ham need all 3 points here for sure to stay in the Prem. Can they find what they need?
This is the ultimate test, right? Does quality matter more, which Newcastle have a lot more of, or does motivation matter more, which West Ham have a lot more of? And that's not the only thing, it's also going to be form, right? Because Newcastle have looked flat all season. Even with their midfielders back, they have struggled to create chances. And other than like Osula and Harvey Barnes and a few other players looking good individually at times, there has been nothing cohesively about the midfield or the offense. West Ham, on the other hand, they have all to play for. They have a much weaker squad on paper. But if squad quality was the determining factor for who went down, West Ham would have probably been down in the dumps months ago. And yet, even though they are currently in 18th, they're still in the relegation battle with 2 weeks to go. They are still pushing a Tottenham side that has a much stronger squad on paper and a lot more money. So we do have to give them some respect. Against Arsenal, you would expect them to say, okay, there's no way we're winning this. Let's just go and try to win the last two. But they took the fight to Arsenal, and they nearly got a result there. A goal that was overturned by VAR. To be fair, I do think rightly so, and they made a video about it. They were still screwed over by the refs in other ways, in my opinion. And despite that, they looked very good. Without some David Raya heroics, they would have got a point anyways. And they still, I'm not going to say they're in a driver's seat, obviously, because they're reliant on Tottenham dropping points. But I don't see Tottenham getting 6 points in their next 2 matches either. So there is still something here if you're West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, this last game for them, obviously discouraging for their hopes of escaping relegation. But I do think it was an encouraging performance. I think, first off, I will say I believe the final VAR call in that game was reasonable. I do agree with you there that I think it was fair. But I also think West Ham were hard done in this game. It was a reasonable conclusion, ultimately, to what had been a very unreasonable 90 minutes of refereeing, I feel. Still, despite all the chaos, the Hammers competed well, defended with real aggression, attacked with the 2, disrupted Arsenal's rhythm for long spells, and they created enough to feel they deserved something from the match. I will say there have been a lot of games like that for them this season, which is a big part of why they're down here in the first place, right? There are a lot of games where it seems like they deserve a point, if not maybe 3, but not able to win in the decisive moments. It's cost them lots of goals, lots of points, and has put them in this position. But they still look decent, right? And I imagine they'll play with far more urgency than Newcastle will. I expect them to fight to the very end of this game. So I think they'll play their part to make this an exciting game. We will just have to see how much Newcastle are willing to bring to the table. And if I'm going to talk about them real quick, they're finding the same old ways to screw themselves over in their games. This game was stale as fuck while it was still 0-0. Newcastle, I know, brought Barnes and Ramsey on, and they were better at that point. They still never looked fully convincing, and once the goal went in, they went back to being stale as fuck. And eventually, they dropped their 26th and 27th points of the season from leading positions. It's, of course, I know Nottingham put in good effort. Their forwards, like Anderson, for example, of course. It wasn't all down to Newcastle defending poorly, but they did play poorly, right? And I just think West Ham, if you look at the last few games, if you look at just the last games, West Ham have been consistently better than Newcastle has. There is a quality difference going Newcastle's way, but definitely a performance difference going West Ham's way. And again, you couple that with the motivation, West Ham probably bringing more energy to the game as a result. There is quite a lot in favor of West Ham here, despite them playing away.
And I'll put one more thing in their favor as well. It is the fact that Newcastle play on the wings, at least tactically speaking, and yet not a single player on the left side is playing in position. Dan Burn is not a left back. Joe Linton sure as hell is not a winger. He's not even an attacker. He used to be an attacker, but we as in, his managers realized a few years ago that he's much better as a midfielder. But Newcastle are just so out of options. Their transfers have been such flops. They're playing 2 people out of position. And for West Ham on the other side, Aaron Wan-Bissaka looked very dangerous recently. He was very questionable defensively, I would say, at the start of the season, but he's looked a lot better now, and he's still pushing up. Jared Bowen is one of the most reliable, one of the best assets you can have when you're a player in a relegation battle, when you're a team in a relegation battle, rather. And as bad as their attack was at the start of the season, bringing in Tati Castellanos, I gotta say, was a genius transfer move. So if I'm Newcastle, this is not all theoretical. I see one key area of the pitch where they absolutely can get taken advantage of, and especially in a match where they just don't care, and West Ham very much do, that might be the reason that Newcastle dropped points here.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about like Wissa and Woltemade, when we signed Isak and it started going terribly, and Woltemade was actually doing decent to start for Newcastle, I thought it was like good karma, bad karma. Like they could get some Schadenfreude because we were going to do terrible and they were going to do brilliant with their new guys to replace Isak. That's not worked out. It was not, in fact, an equal and opposite reaction. We were just both shit with those signings. And
it was an equal, but not opposite.
But not
reaction.
opposite.
That's what it
right,
was.
Right. Their new guys aren't going to save them. Some of their like older players, existing players, are pretty decent, but are also, I think, not going to save them here. Player by player, theoretically, Newcastle are better. But West Ham, I think, have just got a bunch of guys that seem like they could spur a win. If you get 1 or 2 of those guys doing real well, and I think they could have 1 or 2 star performances, it could push them along. Or you could also just have a nice, cohesive team performance. I think we can get that from West Ham too. Regardless, I think that there's just a better energy from West Ham and their players right now. And I think, it's even Newcastle playing at home. They don't have the motivation. Their performances don't suggest anything great in this game. I'm going to say it's a West Ham win. It'll definitely be a close one. I don't I should say West Ham win is it's definitely out there. I think a draw would be the reasonable thing here to say. But you know what? Newcastle are going to score first and they're going to let it all go to waste. And if West Ham equalize, I think they lose all their spirits and they never come back. And so if West Ham want to score a second goal, it is there for the taking. So it'll be 2-1 West Ham for me. It is
No, I'm just.
definitely one of my more
Hang on.
questionable predictions.
Do you have a? Oh wait, you do have a 2-0. Okay, fair enough. I'm just mad because I also have a West Ham win, and I put that because I thought you were gonna have a West Ham win. Look, it's ridiculous because there's no logic behind West Ham winning this. We're gassing them up, but first off, the bookies say that Newcastle are the clear favorites. I'm sure Opta must say the same thing, especially because Newcastle is playing at home. We look like fools. Now, we will look like geniuses if they do go out and win, but everybody is saying that West Ham are already relegated. Everybody is saying the relegation battle is over. People have written off West Ham for this match. And clearly we think they're wrong to do so, but we're going to look so stupid, right?
I mean, it's not consensus that Newcastle they win this, obviously.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I honestly, like, I have faith. I really do have faith in West Ham, which means they'll get what they need to do done in the relegation battle. And I guess we'll get to this match soon enough, but it'll be up to Tottenham to follow up.
Right.
We'll see how they fare.
You know,
right?
Here's the one thing I have to say. West Ham are a team that feel like they should be in the Premier League. And that's sort of a not nefarious, that's sort of a nebulous, open-ended statement. But what I mean by that is in matches where they haven't gotten results, they've looked good. They've shown that they can compete with anybody in the Premier League, which, I'll just be honest, Tottenham at times have not shown that this season. And, I mean, this is obviously not true, but it's felt like they've been in the Prem forever, even though they are actually not that old of a squad here. So, for me, what this reminds me of is Everton a few seasons ago. They looked likely to be relegated for much of the season after Don Carlo left. But in those last 2 match weeks, they locked in, and Leicester went down. I just get the feeling something like that could happen again. So, that's about all I have to say.
No, I agree. There's just a feeling here that they are right to stay in the Prem. Like they could be squabbling in the lower places. They could be in another relegation fight next season, right? But they are at least deserving of getting to that spot rather than like getting relegated now. I think I can at least say I think they deserve another season to push a bit higher up the table, right? They've been pretty good, honestly. With that said, well, we've got a team that's already relegated here, Burnley. And a team on like quite literally the opposite end of the table with Arsenal. I think I imagine your prediction goes kind of how my prediction goes here, kind of how the audience would expect. But yeah, let's see. What are you thinking here?
Arsenal did not look good against West Ham, but we're at the phase of the season where results don't really matter. Only results matter, and play style does not. And I think that's going to be the mentality that Arsenal are carrying forward. But against Burnley, they're just so bad of a side that I don't think it's going to matter at all. I think part of the reason why that match was so close was there were some clear mistakes that Mikel Arteta made. First 20 minutes, Arsenal were dominant. If he didn't screw up the Ben White injury, that is to say, if he decided to just play a right back at right back and not put on Zubimendi, Arsenal probably would just continue dominating the way they did for the first 20 minutes. Probably get at least a goal by halftime, if not multiple. And that match is never as cagey as it ended up being. And I think that something similar is going to happen here, in that as long as Arsenal don't screw up tactically, as long as Mikel Arteta doesn't screw up tactically, there's no way at the Emirates Arsenal drop points. So, Arsenal 3-0. Like, I don't know what else there is to say.
I have the exact same. This is where I wanted to be a bit more outlandish in terms of my actual score. And yeah, it is an Arsenal 3-0. I mean, out of their last 3 games, I think safe to say, even West Ham away was going to be their most likely chance to drop points, right? Burnley at home, right. Palace away, but they're well out of the European race already. The one real thorn in their side was West Ham. And I know people are going to look at that VAR call.
And by the way, I should say they're playing Palace 3 days before Palace play the Conference League final. So
that game's in their hands as is. Yeah. It's in my opinion anyways. I know people are going to look at that VAR call, see that it went Arsenal's way, and think they were saved by the refs, and if they weren't, they wouldn't have had a chance in this game.
They were saved by the refs, though, just not by that call specifically.
Exactly. It's but even still, I think generally they put in enough for themselves. Would it have been a secure win? No. I mean, even this win wasn't secure, right? But I think with what they were putting up before the Ben White injury, especially, and after when they figured out the subs properly, with you brought Odegaard in, right? In those two sections, start of the game, end of the game, I think they were good. They were honestly good. Again, question how exactly how deserved a win was, but they played well for long stretches here. And again, if that is their most challenging game, then I think like these next two will be pretty fine. They just have to be decent. They're at home. They just have to be decent. I think they can be more than decent, just because as much as Burnley have improved a decent amount recently, it's Arsenal. They're not scoring. First off, they're not getting past that iron wall defense, and I think Arsenal will also find quite a few chances, and they have the cutting edge they need to convert them all. So yeah, it's going to be 3-0 for me. Could be 2-0 as well, but I think it will be quite comfortable for Arsenal. Just if they narrowly beat West Ham, I think they can be more comfortable against Burnley, more comfortable against Palace, right?
Right. I mean, even though West Ham are 18th and Burnley are 19th, there's a massive gap
There's
between those two placements.
There.
Yeah, it's like 18 teams and then like massive cutoff. That being said, the other team in the title race still is Bournemouth against City, and with how bodily Arsenal have been in previous seasons, you never know if you're Pep, right? You should just keep winning your games. You never know. Maybe Arsenal on the last match day. I mean, they haven't had any red cards yet this season, but we remember what happened last season. What if that all piles up on match day 38? What if they get 7 red cards and they have to forfeit the match? Right? You never know. So, right. Bournemouth against City. City just have to get the job done, and that's what they've been doing so far. Yes, they did look shaky with that Everton draw, but since then, it's been smooth sailing. And I mentioned a few weeks ago that part of the difficulty for them is the congested fixtures, right? They played on the 10th, they played 3 days later, and now they're going to be playing 4 days after that. It's very difficult for most teams, but this City side have so much depth that it's not actually too much of a problem for them. In the match on the weekend, we had Semenyo finally getting back to form. I shouldn't say finally, because, again, the fact that these matches are so close together, it makes a string of matches feel like it's been a longer period of time than it actually has been. But Semenyo was not great for the last, I would say, 3 games before coming back in the weekend. Dogu continuing to be absolutely dominant somehow. Haaland, he probably should have had more goals than he really did in that first weekend match. But, City get the job done 3-0. No real complaints when you're winning a match 3-0, right? And then carbon copy repeat against Palace with not their full second squad, but quite a bit of rotations. Foden played his best game of 2026, I would say. Marmoush and Savino reminded us that they exist, both scoring. They don't get much playing time in the Premier League, but perfect opportunity for them. So City will be constrained again, but I think it doesn't really matter who they play. Somebody is going to find goals for them, and the only way you can compete is the way Everton did. Get goals of your own. And Bournemouth are actually not the worst equipped team to do that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we've seen this amazing transformation with Bournemouth since January, where they sold Semenyo to City, and it looked like their attack was going to be just completely derailed, right? Their whole campaign, really, because just think how important he was for them and their strats. The whole team was built around them. Instead, we have this stunning unbeaten run that has the Cherries now firmly in the European places. And compared to those first few match weeks, they were wild in attack, basically using this gambit of, I'll let you score 3 if I score 4, right? Or something of the sort. They're now a lot more disciplined, resilient, increasingly efficient in both boxes. And they have been able to edge out, if necessary, a lot of these games rather than going wild and either they win by a lot or they lose by a lot. Can they outscore City, though? Can they edge out City? That's the issue for me. Because I think while Bournemouth are pretty decent defensively, it won't be enough to survive City's elite pressure sustained over 90 minutes. And if that's the case, you have to wonder, would the old Bournemouth have been better for this task? There's good balance to this team now, but is that what you want here? Or do you want some guys that can just go out and score? Score, and maybe they beat City on that front. It's just like, even with this unbeaten streak, can they stop the freight train that is Man City in May? I do question it. Because really, what team can stop it, right? Even Arsenal wasn't able to in two, like, close together matches. Can
And I would say
Bournemouth
City
get it
look even
done?
better than back then.
Yeah, they do.
Look,
They've honestly
yeah,
improved. Yeah.
honestly, okay. How do you stop Jeremy Doku, man? Like, I'm so
You don't,
serious.
bro. He carried them through the game against Everton, right? And then
Right.
even when they improved a bit against Brentford, and I was worried, oh, they're relying too much on Doku. He's for City like what Holland was at the start of the season. That was a concern for me. Eventually, at the end of the game, they looked fine,
He's better
but
than Holland now.
he
Because
is,
Holland is just shooting. This guy is
and
dribbling like a god. He is making crazy passes. He's playing with aimbot on. You know what this is? This is
what
Lionel Messi. We're seeing Lionel Messi
on Man City?
doing blackface for Pep Guardiola at the end of the
Okay,
Premier League season. Pep Guardiola always has some devil magic. Jeremy Doku has gotten like no GA the past 2 years, and all of a sudden he's going to turn into prime Messi, so that Man City are right there until the very last whistle in this Premier League season.
dude, he's dragging them through the mud when need be. And eventually, like you get these other guys picking up as well. You're telling me like you've got Holland here still, he's still decent. You've got Cherky. How are you supposed to deal with Cherky on a good day? How do you deal with Doku on a good day, which somehow has been
So
every
Turkey has turned to Iniesta. Because this
this
man's
is
playmaking, his flair is unbelievable.
Pep has finally decided to stop ruining football, and he's just gone back to tiki taka. He is back to
Right.
Barcelona tactics. Yep, great. And Barcelona flair too. I don't know. It's just however they do play, it is ultimately they have this suffocating wave after wave of controlled attacking pressure. It's just that springtime city, right? What are you meant to do about it? I don't know what your score is. I'm thinking it could be 1 or 2 goal margin. I'm gonna say it is a 3-1 to City. I think Bournemouth can push back hard for a while, but at some point, City are just gonna open the floodgates of this game. I think.
We haven't mentioned him yet, but I think it's just worth mentioning real quick. Ryan has had a goal contribution in 4 straight games. So I feel like that's a guaranteed 1 for Bournemouth. So
True.
Bournemouth
Yeah.
are going to get 1 goal. I think that because of the rotations and the scheduling, Pep is probably going to, tone it down a little bit like he did against, I believe, Burnley. I think it's going to be 2-1. I think Man City are going to be dominant, and they're not going to be in any danger of like Bournemouth getting a second goal or anything like that. But
Right.
I think Pep is going to just chill a little bit.
Fair. And I mean, yeah, it is possible. We'll have to see, but I think GD could be a big difference maker here ultimately.
Yeah.
Assuming
By the
Arsenal
way, I
don't.
realized I said earlier that they're playing 4 days after the midweek.
Yeah.
That's true. That's the FA Cup match,
Right,
and then they're
this
playing
is 3 days
this.
after. Yeah,
Right. So I think the way I said that was a little odd, but just so people are clear, it's a string of 4 matches in like I think 10-ish, something like
Right.
that days. So
to be fair, it's like it does seem like they're managing pretty well, right? So I don't think that'll hurt them too much here. Yeah. Honestly, it's just what can you do against Spring City, right? That's Bournemouth aren't going to beat him. And in terms of GD, even let's say they do get 2-1, like you said, they're pretty close to Arsenal and goal diff right now. So I don't think like they can make that up if needed. We'll just see how things work out, I guess.
yeah, well they're ahead on goal differential right now. No,
I think they are by 1, if I'm not mistaken.
So okay, Arsenal will get even worse on the GD chart if they drop points.
True,
So
right.
right now, like this is still actually City kind of where they want to be in that if Arsenal drop points, I kind of think that City just win the Premier League at that point. Because there's no way Arsenal's catching up on GD.
Yeah. If City gain at all here, then Arsenal against Palace on the final day. It's not the worst matchup, but they'd have to make up quite a bit, and that assumes City's GD hardly changes at all, right? They're
going to go hard the last match as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they will be consistently racking up that GD quite a bit. Yeah. So they're in a decent spot in that sense, at least. They just need Burnley to somehow snatch points off Arsenal, which is like an absolute miracle if that happens. But who knows? It could be done.
Or Palace could happen as well. You never know.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will Hughes becomes prime I don't know. I don't even know. Tony Cruz somehow. Crazier
Yeah,
things have happened in the Premier League.
yeah. Okay. Well,
Balotelli making his first assist in the Premier League ever to assist Sergio Aguero. Crazier shit has happened. Sorry, anyways.
we'll end off the match week then. We've got two London rivals. Each one, of course, is in their own race and a very different part of the table, right? But each one is desperately needing points right now, I think, to secure what they're looking for. We have Chelsea hosting Tottenham. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking this is the is this the match of the week? It feels just wrong to say that, but we
I
gotta keep
mean,
tabs on
yeah,
West Ham and Tottenham, no?
if you think about like both these teams have got to have something that they're in contention for, and Tottenham certainly, especially, have something they're in contention for. Yeah, I think
Right.
so.
And I would say obviously Arsenal and City as well, but you would just say that those two are much more likely. We kind of know what's going to happen here.
Right.
West Ham against Newcastle and then Chelsea against Tottenham are like very wide open matches, in my opinion. So for this one, does Chelsea look better, or is Liverpool a very questionable side right now? I think you could make a solid case for both. But what is true is that Chelsea, after going a goal down, uncharacteristically looked psychologically strong, pushed back, got the equalizer, and for the remainder of the match was the better side. Right? You would agree. You guys looked worse
Yeah,
for definitely the second half.
at the end, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that was Reece James coming back in the end. So that means there's a good chance, if not starting, he gets even more minutes here. I would say Levi Colwell made the backline relatively more consistent. Obviously, still question marks, but a little bit better. Caicedo, I would say, looked better. But then again, is that Caicedo actually being better, or is that your midfield being what it is? So a lot of things to ask about Chelsea. And in a similar thing of Tottenham, De Zerbi has clearly made the side better to some extent, at least on paper. They have a triangle offense link up. The midfielders and the wingers are actually playing together instead of being isolated. The midfield is having ball progression, which has been a problem for them all season. But is that Tottenham getting better, or is that they played Wolves, they played a rotated Villa, and they got the refs to help them, and yet only got a draw still against Leeds, right? So I feel like if you're going to be a hater, there's still a lot to hate on for both of these sides.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was a. If I'll talk about Chelsea, it was a pretty shitty performance for them this last game. Though I will say, finally, it is something to build off going into their cup final. And if they can do decent there, that Lord knows, maybe they even win it against City. They'll have something more still to build off for this next game.
If they win that match, I'm going to be so pissed. By the way, because Chelsea fans, when Chelsea is constantly winning these fucking Mickey Mouse titles, and we keep hearing about how they're a big club because you win the Conference League and the Donald Trump Invitational Trophy and the FA Cup, which I guess is relatively a little bit better. But Chelsea farms FA Cups and City does not give a fuck, so it's still not the same.
Yeah, I mean, if City have to choose one of FA Cup or Premier League, they're obviously taking the league title, right? Though, I mean, we'll see. I think City will be pretty good for themselves in the cup final. But I think if Chelsea have had 5 games goalless, right? I want to say it was 7 games they went losing, or just winless generally, before they, or it was losing actually before they finally drew against us. But they finally have like a stepping stone that they can hopefully for them build off of. And yeah, I think it was a decent showing against us. It was hardly anything great, anything classic vintage, right? But that's just what they need, is something to go from trash to something decent, right? And hopefully for them they could elevate themselves a bit more in these next 2 games of theirs. I think we have seen with Chelsea some issues in defense in recent weeks. I know people talk about the attack. I'm going to say a bit on the defense. We saw that improve here, I think, against Liverpool. Their midfield spacing held up well against our rotations. McFarland switched to a back 3, which stabilized things a lot, especially worked well with Colwell's return. There were rough moments there, but again, it's a big improvement, I think, in defense. And so against a Spurs team, which I'm honestly thinking will play pretty cautious because they're 2 points ahead of West Ham. They don't want to risk it all for a win, right? I think Chelsea can hold off for the most part whatever attacking pressure they face, which is as well going to give them a platform to build on for their own attacks. And Tottenham's defense, too, is no iron wall, right? So I think Chelsea can find some good openings. I think the defense will allow them to be confident in finding chances. It's just now, can they find that finishing edge? Because definitely the worst of their problems has been their attack, right? That's the glaring issue here. So can those forwards improve? That is what I think we will have to see now.
I think a big factor in that is Kinski, right? Because Kinski went from, the clown of the goalkeeping world against Atletico to, I would say, with ViCario injured, in these last few matches, he's been very good. He's actually been a very underrated factor in these results for Tottenham. So not an easy goalkeeper to score on right now. I mean, Leeds couldn't do it. Does Chelsea have a better finishing ability than Leeds? I don't know. It's kind of a open-ended. I think you could argue either way in that regard. And yes, the defense hasn't been great for Tottenham either, but one more thing that is definitely going in their favor, which you've kind of taken for granted, or I should rather say taken for granted that they wouldn't have in their favor, is the mentality. Because they went from down and out, we're going to abandon ship, we're going to leave at the summer, to now De Zerbi's at the wheel. He clearly has a plan. He's gotten us back to somewhere decent at least. And you know what? We're in it. Like, if we can make a great escape here, there is something memorable in that itself. And the way Tottenham are playing is maybe not the most sustainable because a lot of their goals are coming from screamers, which, you take whatever you can get in a relegation battle. But obviously, if we're looking into the future under De Zerbi, that's not the best thing. But the fact that we're now looking at the future of De Zerbi, that we're looking at De Zerbi next season at Tottenham in the Premier League, is already like way better than Tottenham would have been, say, a month ago. So there is still some positives here. I think they could very much still get a result in this match.
Yeah, that's fair. Though I do think, with Tottenham here, they failed for one reason or another once they did get ahead in this game to properly control it. I think, of course, Richarlison missed a key chance to make it 2-0. You could put it up to that, perhaps. It did kind of cut off what had been a good second half up to that point for Spurs. Tell, of course, went from scoring the opener to conceding the equalizer. I'm sure that was not great for his mental. It was probably great for Leeds, who suddenly looked far more comfortable pushing forward. You can see here, I'm not pointing out much tactics-wise, right? Because I think De Zerbi's tactics are pretty good. Like, you look at the press baiting by Kinski in the back line. Kinski, of course, in this elevated position in the team now, which has probably upped his confidence a lot. The more calm reserve possessions when they're not looking for a quick play out from the back. I think there's good variety in their play here, and I think it's all working out pretty well. There are just these little mistakes they have, perhaps without their more seasoned players like Romero, Kudus, Xavi Simons. And with some of those losses, Spurs just don't look composed enough in a lot of key moments. And going into Stamford Bridge, I said it before, but I think the pressure to avoid making more mistakes, avoid losing that precious 2-point lead, is going to make them a lot more passive than usual. So I think for a while, first off, I think this game will be cagey. I think for a while it's going to be drawn. We might see 2 goals in a relatively short period of time, and it goes to like 1-1. And again, I think it will be drawn for quite a while. But I do somehow want to say that there's going to be a late goal here, I'm thinking. And I am going to say that that's going to go to Chelsea. I think there are honestly quite a few ways I could see this going, because both these teams are just decent right now. Spurs, you could say, are kind of coming in with a better mental, right? They have less schedule, like fixture congestion. That's perhaps a contributing factor. But I don't know. I think Chelsea, if they can continue the progress that they've got going, again, it does beg the question: if they get like absolutely whooped in the FA Cup final, what happens then to their mental? Then this could swing completely the other way. But I want to say they're decent there, whether they win or lose, and they can keep building. And so I think they will have it in them to, just like they finished the game against us very well, I think they can see out this game pretty well too. And I'm just going to say they find a goal. I can't say exactly who from. This is really not like a tactical conversation for me at this point. I just think they get it done. Yeah.
I still think that you're hating on Liverpool a little bit too much though, because just like I could say, caveats for all of Tottenham's wins, can I not caveat Chelsea's draw with this is a Liverpool side with injuries playing a formation they don't typically play, and who have nothing to play for, I don't know that Chelsea can get that last minute goal. Because again, where is it coming from? Joao Pedro cannot just be the only guy for them forever. And I feel like there have been a lot of weeks where we say, I just feel like Chelsea's going to get a second goal, but I don't know where it's going to come from. And recently, it's just not come at all. So, one, I'm not going to bet on that. And two, this season has been absolute cinema. If this is a draw and West Ham win, we enter match week 38 with both sides on 39 points. That would be the best possible outcome. That would be the most cinematic potential match week 38 finish. And because it's the most cinematic outcome, I think it's the most likely outcome. So I'll say 1-1.
Okay. I didn't even think about how the points would work out here. Yeah, you're right. So I would have then West Ham a point ahead of Tottenham going into this last day. Yeah, interesting. Okay. I mean, it's like we said, right? The races, neither of these races, the title or relegation quite worked out how we were expecting. But
we don't know how it's going to work out though. We don't know.
That's true. There's potential still in the title race, but at least for this relegation race, I think there's a good chance for sure that it will be level on the final day. And yeah, that will be quite the watch for sure. Though even for me, if I say West Ham are a point ahead, who are West Ham playing on the final day? Because I know we've
Leeds.
Talked about they're
Leeds?
playing Leeds and
then Everton for Tottenham.
Tottenham are playing Everton. Tottenham are at home, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah.
West Ham are at home as well. To be fair, yeah, we're
assuming that West Ham get that win, which is not guaranteed at all. If
That's
West Ham
true.
lose to Newcastle and Tottenham get even a draw because of goal differential, or they win, West Ham are done by match week 38. So, this could very much not even be a conversation whatsoever. In fact, there's a much bigger chance of that not being a conversation than the title race not being a conversation. Because at least if it's still 2 points, theoretically anything could happen.
Right. But you said you wanted the cinematic finish, right? So
right. Well, I want it. That doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Do you think it happens, though? Because you did say it has been cinematic this season, no?
Right.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right.
Again, it's all vibes, man. Guys. It's all vibes for me with this match. I don't know.
I don't think anyone has anything better to say. Like, what do you want us to do?
The thing is, especially with this game, it's in like a little under a week. Chelsea have an FA Cup final to play, right? Like, Lord knows what's going to happen there. I said it before, but if they get absolutely like hand to ass whooped in that game, they're losing this, or at best drawing this. But I think they could very well lose this next one, just because all your motive is gone at that point. I think about like Chelsea's best chance at Europe is the FA Cup. I think still.
Right.
They really are behind in the European race. And if they get that Europa League spot from FA Cup, they'll be celebrating. They'll be in high spirits. I think that would be great for them. If they lose it badly, I don't think it reflects that well on them, because it's like after all these losses, they've just been starting to do good. You're telling me it's back to square one again? That wouldn't be great, right? But we just have to see.
Either way, they're not going to prioritize this Prem match.
That's also true.
And either way, they're not going to prioritize this Prem match because it's only a few, 3 days or something after the FA Cup. So this is a rotated Chelsea side. This is a deprioritized Chelsea side either way. Tottenham could very easily get a win here. Neither of us are saying it, but
there are
not
a lot
that
of ways
unrealistic at all.
Which is, I mean, you said you thought it was the most interesting match.
They beat a better Villa side. They beat a Villa side, and Villa are better than Chelsea. That was rotated. So if they win this match, and West Ham don't win, even if they get a draw, it's over.
Right. Yeah, I think mathematically it's over. Right. So
no, literally, mathematically it's over. So it's precarious. I mean,
we'll see.
My prediction, I have Tottenham going down and Arsenal winning the title, could still happen. Right, that's what I had in our last table prediction, anyways. Could still happen. I mean, it's obviously not the likelier outcome at this point, right? So We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think in addition to these Prem games, yeah, I would say tune in for that City Chelsea game in the FA Cup final, guys, because it's for both these teams. If Chelsea do get obliterated, yeah, it looks bad for them in the Prem too. Just motivation shattered, and then it looks great for Tottenham, right? And then if Man City lose that game, which I get the feeling, even if they rotate a bit, they still expect to win it. That's bad for their motivation. So that is an external game, I guess, that could have some very big impacts here. So
Right.
I don't know if it's overlapping with any Prem games when that game
No,
plays.
it's on Saturday. It's on Saturday, and then there's no Prem matches on Saturday.
Right. I do remember there's a gap there. It's like Friday to Sunday. Friday matches,
Yeah.
Sunday matches, in the middle is FA Cup. Watch the FA Cup, guys. Even if it's not your team, I think if you're just interested in how the Prem is going to settle, it is worth watching that game as well.
Yeah, they're really. It's shocking how much the FA Cup matters for the Prem this season, because
There are real
last year it didn't
ramifications
really
to it.
matter at all.
Right. It was City Palace.
It
But
was
yeah,
City
there
that were
are
out of it,
real-
and Palace that didn't care. So
Right. But there
yeah.
are real ramifications this time, I think. Yeah. Okay, with that said, yeah, some questionable predictions here. I think we disagreed on quite a lot in terms of exact scores or even just results. But that's kind of what I need, right? If I'm lucky, I get a big lead with the second to last match week, and then I don't know how much you can do, Darian, on the final day at that
Yeah,
point, right?
that would not be good for me.
That's my hope. If I can somehow jump you for like a 4 or 5 point lead, then that is great for me.
Or I
But
could
we'll
jump
see.
you, and then you'd be in the same.
I
You'd
could
be in the same
absolutely
position.
fuck myself over as well, right?
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, that concludes then another set of predictions from the CoDaKrew. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you soon with another set for that final match day. Yeah, stay tuned and have a good one.
See ya.